Welcome to the Minx and Muse podcast. I'm your host, Crimson Minx, creatrix of Minx and Muse, a dark feminine playhouse where we awaken our innate magic through esoerotic dance and witchcraft. Welcome to the portal of enchantment. Welcome to the Minx and Muse podcast, and this is going to be a solo episode with me, Crimson, and I am here to chat about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is the topic of aging, of youth-obsessed culture, and just the idea of constantly seeking external validation in general. But when it comes to physicality, we'll narrow it down a little bit. But I did a reel last week on Instagram about this, and I called it Embracing the Crone. And I was so fired up after. There was so much more I wanted to say. However, social media has to be like 60 seconds and it doesn't really allow for much nuance. But there was a really positive feedback and just engagement in general. And I know this is a topic that is completely in alignment with the work that we do with esoeroticism and at Minx and Muse. So I can't believe it's taken this long to do this. But as I said, this is a topic that is near and dear to me. I like to talk about things that I have personally moved through and experienced. I teach on things that I had once struggled with, and this is definitely one of those. So just to let you know what to expect, I'm going to share some stories from my past of how I've confronted these topics in my life from a youth until very recently. I am also going to share my perspectives and my personal insights on things such as youth obsessed culture, but also face injectables and Botox and Ozempic and things like that. And so just so you know, that's happening. These are my opinions. It's my podcast, so it would make sense that this is where I share them, but you may not agree, and that is okay. We live in a world where we are all entitled to having our opinions, and this is just mine. And so that being said, I am going to have an opinion. And so I personally do not subscribe to the idea that I've heard spread around that if we do something in our own, making our own decision around it and choosing to do something for ourselves, that it is inherently empowering and it is inherently a good thing. And I just find that to be a kind of base argument. I don't subscribe to that. So if that is something you subscribe to, you may actually find this a bit triggering. So feel free to click off now. But if you're interested, thanks for hanging out with me. Addressing this idea that everything that, for example, women have been oppressed for so long, so anything that they choose to do in terms of, beauty or health or anything is inherently empowering because they get to make it of their own, sovereign decision. And that, I mean, yes and no, but no, because that's kind of saying like, I personally am a big advocate and supporter of the trans community. Is every single thing that every trans person does an empowering positive thing? No, that's so silly. And so in the same way that we don't want to like just say that we don't want to question things, right? I'm calling it to question things. And the question that I ask is, are we doing things, especially when it comes to our external selves, that we think are going to make us feel good, when in fact we really need to instead focus on our internal self? Are we pandering to beauty standards that aren't something that is authentic to us or sustainable for us or attainable to us, to look like something that someone else has deemed beautiful or worthy? I feel like I'm kind of rambling a bit here, so let me reel it back in. I am very concerned of a trend that I see going on, in that people are so obsessed with how they look, that they are willing to do expensive surgeries, risky beauty treatments or health treatments or injections, that they have gotten, and they've gotten to such an unhealthy mental state around it that they cannot even post anything online without a filter. A better me filter, right? It just smooths my skin a little bit, right? It makes my teeth a little more white. It makes my eyes a little more open, my nose a little more buttony. And to me, this is not healthy, because this is this is putting unrealistic expectations on what we are supposed to look like as human beings in these meat suits. And I want to say that I'm coming at this from a perspective of not being on some high horse. Okay, I'm definitely not on a high horse. I'm barely on a pony. I'm probably on that like mechanical horse outside of the grocery store in the 80s. That's the kind of horse that I'm on right now, because I have been through this. So that's why I want to speak about it. I feel like I could not imagine being younger with the social media and internet influence that people have to face today. I know how long it took me to develop a sense of inner self-worth and acceptance. And if I did not do that work to get to where I was today, I would probably still be very much controlled by this narrative of, if I look better, I'm going to be happier, and what looking better looks like. And come on, European beauty standards, it means that I'm thinner. It means that my nose is a little smaller. It means that my skin is flawless. It means, that I don't have any wrinkles. And this worries me because I know that it's not a healthy state of obsession. And let me share. So let me take a step back and say that first, when I say I'm on my mechanical pony from the grocery store horse, not on a high horse, I want to be really clear, especially if you're watching this YouTube, is very clear. I love makeup. I wear a lot of makeup. Okay. I dye my hair. I dye my hair red. I had my eyebrows tattooed on. I use teeth whitening strips. Like, I am not coming to this discussion from some out of touch perspective of like, beauty is only in a completely natural state. And that's why it's been so nuanced for me to make my way through, like, how do I really feel about this? Because I'm like, but am I embracing aging if I'm wearing all this makeup and I'm, covering up my grays with the red hair? And what is empowering and what isn't empowering? And that's what I'm trying to talk through today. And showing, and maybe to some people, me dyeing my hair is disempowering. And that's where I said, like, we're all going to have different opinions and we have to honor those. So, like, that's totally fair. I totally accept that. I've set certain standards for myself of what I accept as pursuing beauty and health in a way that celebrates my authentic self, almost like I am celebrating and decorating myself and adorning myself, versus, am I literally trying to change myself in a way that is never going to be naturally attainable to me and is not going to be something that is going to be a true representation of who I am when you meet me in the 3G world. So, let me take a step back and share some stories, because I said I was going to share some personal stories, and I want you to have a better understanding of why I feel so passionately about this. And it was because I have struggled with this fucking concept my entire life. I can remember, if you're a Gen X or maybe an elder millennial, you may remember that in the teen magazines back in the day, there was an ad on that back page, and it said, "They laughed when I bought my bikini, but when I walked on the beach, dot, dot, dot." And it was very eye catching and very me. I think I was probably 11 or 12 years old at this time, very susceptible to recognizing that I did not have a bikini body. And I remember it was something like $7. And I luckily, I babysat and I did some refereeing and coaching back then of sports. So I saved my money and I sent it to this horrible company in the mails. And like, because this was an ad for like, here's how do you lose weight, right? Here's the solution. And it got this like chintzy little photocopied pamphlet back. And it was like, for breakfast, have a cottage cheese and a grapefruit. For lunch, have skinless chicken and broccoli. And then make sure that you exercise for 1 hour a day. Just like really base, silly stuff like that. And I mean, this was me at like 11, and it just got worse from there. So I was never the person that was the conventionally beautiful, that had the hot bod. I'm not coming to this conversation as someone that's out of touch, that has like this well, I've never had to struggle with this before, so I don't understand what the problem was. And then I had really terrible acne in high school. So there's something, getting that is something that I did really feel like when I was able to finally get medication that fixed my acne, I did have more self empowerment and confidence. So it's like, oh, this grayness. But with the weight thing, I did lose weight. I had like a late blooming weight loss, like later in high school, and I did for a moment lose some weight, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, wow. Was I happy? No. Was I confident? No. Did I love myself anymore? No, because it was never enough. So here's some stories. When I went to college, I gained the freshman like 30. And I just remember crying and just hating myself, just being so upset at how I looked. And I actually have a really terrible story. Well, it's not terrible. It's like more cringy. So I would give a trigger warning if it was anything like that. But this is a cringe story. So this was something that still lives in my head today. Is our freshman spring break. There was like 20 of us girls, and we went down to Miami for spring break because our friend Monica was from down there. And we were spring breaking it. And the final night, most people stayed in. You may not know this about me, but I'm a party girl, or was. Not anymore. But it was the last night, and there was like 5 of us that were still going to go out. And it just happened to be like my 5 friends who were just like tall and thin and beautiful. And we're in Miami. Yes, I get it. Do the math. I'm 19, not legally allowed to drink, but hello, fake ID realness. We're going into this club, and they let everyone in. They stop me, and he just goes to me, I want you to know. And he looks me up and down. If you weren't with them, you wouldn't be getting in right now. And I was like, oh, at the time I tried to kind of not let it bother me, but that fucking stung. To this day, like, who says that? Now I'm like, oh, look at this like douche Miami, whatever, door guy picking on like young girls, get a fucking life. But at the time, I was, that fucking broke me, because through the year I was already dealing with the fact that I had, felt like I gained so much weight and I wasn't as pretty as the other girls, blah, blah, blah. This sounds so self-indulgent and boring. I'm so sorry. But just to kind of set the stage that that summer was like, I'm not doing it. This was the days of fen. So I definitely got myself on some diet pills and definitely lost the weight, and was on diet pills for many years. And I just share this to not be like, this is kind of a boring story, sorry about this, but like, just to give you the background of like, I have struggled with this my whole life. And if you gave me Ozempic as an option at that time, you damn right I would have figured out how to make that work. And throughout my 20s and 30s, I was always trying to lose weight, trying to look prettier, I feel so blessed. At the time, there was no social media feeding me these ads of like how to restructure my face. Like, even like, I have the world's tiniest lips. And I could totally see, like, there's 10 out of 10, I would have definitely gotten lip injections just because I know that's what is very hot right now. An older version of me, had I not done this work, would have gotten that. I'm not saying if you got lip injections, that's a problem. I'm saying that I'm really happy that I got to a point where I feel like, I have thin lips and this is just something I'm going to fucking deal with. And again, this is like, I don't want anyone to feel like judged or feeling like, oh, there's like a right decision. There's not, but there is for me. And this is how I got there. After my entire life struggling with what I looked like and always thinking the boy doesn't like me because I'm not pretty enough or not skinny enough. I don't have the friends. I couldn't get the job. I'm not happy. I'm not happy because of what I look like. That's what it came down to. I am so happy now to realize that it does not matter what I look like, that my happiness and my joy is all based on my inner self and my inner acceptance. And that was a hard as hell place to get to. That sounds really, really cliche. That it's an internal job. Oh, but no, like, really, if I got to look like that person, we all want to look like someone else. Let's keep it real. But that's the battle, to be able to say, I think that person looks great, but also I'm happy with who I am irregardless, and I'm happy with what I look like. And the aging thing is stressing me the F out. So I'm 44 now, and I have had people very, like, not anyone judgy, not like the fucking doorman from Miami, my goodness, but say, oh, if you just get that line on your forehead, you can just get injections. Oh, like, the crow's feet around, like, oh, if you get this, it'll be preventative from jowls. And I'm like, I'm not doing this shit to myself anymore. Who the fuck said that looking eternally like a 22-year-old is going to make us happy, and that is what beauty is? I have a punk rock soul, and the punk rocker in me says, you can't tell me that I need to look a certain way to be digestible, to be worthy. And that is a really powerful mindset to have. But I'm always going to have that natural tendency to go back to, but what if? And I really meditated this on the other day, that, like, wow, I actually don't want to get Botox. I actually don't want to get lip injections. I actually don't want to get liposuction. I don't want to be, I'm probably heavier now than I was. I definitely am about 20 pounds heavier than I was 4 years ago. I know that for a fact. And quite honestly, I don't give a fuck. I have this weird arm thing, the under the arm thing that you get when you get older. And it's so wonderful because I know past me programming would have said, I need to work out incessantly to get that tightened. And I need to do some spa treatments, to make my skin more even, or to get rid of these wrinkles, and because I want to look like a Kardashian, or I want to look like uh the best version of me. And the best version of me doesn't have wrinkles. The best version of me doesn't have gray roots. The best version of me has fuller lips. The best version of me has a smaller nose. Like, oh my goodness. What a journey it's been. And here are some things that I like to do to kind of catch myself. Is when I start to think about some, like, health or beautification, I think, am I doing this because I think it will make me happy? And by doing so, am I pandering to some kind of external standard of beauty that is not the catch-all of beauty? And is that something that I would like to be an opposing voice against? So, for example, a beauty standard that having no wrinkles and flawless skin is very sold to us right now. So it almost feels more empowering to say, I'm not going to play into that because I know that's not reality. Do you ever look at like old celebrity photos from like the 80s and 90s and they just look like normal people? They haven't had all of the work done, and I think that that's beautiful. Now, if you want to go have work done and it is going to make you happy and you do think that's the best version of yourself and you don't believe you're pandering, or you don't care if you're pandering to beauty standards, that's what you want to look like. Sovereignty, get your damn life. But what I think is happening is we are actually going through some kind of mental programming for us to actually believe that we need things that we don't. And I'm blaming social media here, and I am blaming not even celebrity culture anymore. I'm blaming technology culture at this point. So, hear me out. I made a decision a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when a lot of the video social media became more prominent, that I would not use filters. And if you go and you find by some sneaky detective work old videos that I have on YouTube from about like maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I have some videos up on YouTube, maybe 7 years ago even. Oh, I was filtering, and that wasn't even, I was filtering. I would edit my videos in Premiere Pro and I would put filters over them there. And I go back and I see them now. And at the time I remember being like, oh, that's very light touch. That looks great. And I look at them now, I'm like, this is very obviously filtered. Like, but I had looked at myself for so long and judged myself so hard that my brain thought that like what I was doing was just like a very light touch and wasn't anything. And it was no big deal. And I look back and I see a version of myself that was still really insecure. And that was really like, people are going to watch this if I look like the standard of beauty. If I have I think my thing at the time was like very smooth and clear skin, essentially the things that the apps do now. Now the apps go even crazier now. They rearrange your face so your eyes like are a little wider, I think, and they does something to your nose, and of course it smooths you out, and it makes your face look thinner. And here's the thing, I'm not fucking playing into that because that's not what my face looks like. And I don't want to be putting myself out there and be a voice for the work that I do, esoeroticism, and for our coven of witches, and not practice what I preach. Because I preach self-acceptance, loving thyself, knowing thyself from an internal embodied state, not through some kind of performative measure. And I know this is triggering people because I know a lot of people are like, love these fucking filters. I think it's fucking with people's heads. And I think that it's going to give young people a real big issue of what they think they need to look like. I think it's why people in their 20s are getting preventative Botox. I think that it makes us feel like shit about ourselves because when we look in the mirror, we don't have the filter on. And I would love to start some kind of movement of anti-filter life. Because this, like, let's start seeing human faces. Let's accept ourselves when we have uneven skin tones, when the wrinkles are there, when our eyes look like, I got the Italian eyes with the bags underneath them. Can we start normalizing that shit again? This is why I also hate those AI portraitures. I've talked about this before. And I get it. People love the AI portraits. I've never done it, but you like put your face in. I've seen other people do it and it shows you this is what you look like as a warrior goddess, or this is what you look like as an older person. And I've seen people posting these. This is what AI says I'm going to look like in 20 years. And I'm like, Jesus, all it did was put like it just puts you with gray hair, like, and it's AI, so all the skin's smooth. There's very few wrinkles. Like it auto tunes your face, and I'm like, this is unhealthy to expect that that's what aging is going to look like. There's no drooping. There's no. It just looks so like almost cartoonish of how freaking perfect it looks, and it like, oh, and it thins you out and all this stuff. It's disgusting, and it fucks with our heads. And so I've just made this decision. I will not do these AI portraits. I will not use filters. And I'm saying it now. I don't want to do any kind of facial injections because it's going to be, I know me. Like, remember I said before, I shared all those boring stories about me before by saying how susceptible I am by thinking that what I look like is going to dictate my happiness, that I did diet pills, that I was an exercise freak, that I was always looking to do something to change my external look to try to be more pleasing. And the the options are a lot more now than they were back then. And I could just picture if I was 21, 22, how even more self-loathing I'd be, and how much money I would be spending and resources to try to do these things to change myself instead of celebrating myself as a fucking human who has flaws, who has double chin, who has zits, who has gray hair, who has wrinkles, who's got a belly, man. The weight thing's always been heavy. I feel like that was really, I see these things on social media. It's like, why do I have like a weight issues? And it just shows like how awful the media was to like women, especially in the early 2000s, late 90s, of like saying that they were fat, and they were like, oh my God, the person's like a size 2. What? And I will say, this is not a woman thing. I have noticed some of my favorite 90s rock star dudes have had a tremendous amount of work done. And it made me think like, it's because I feel bad, but they're trying to maintain like, this is the moment where I was told I was valuable. And if I look old, all of a sudden I'm not going to be the hot rock star anymore. This is like all gender identification. This is not a female, not a male thing, whatever. This is going to apply to everyone who lives in this world, and we're going to keep perpetuating it until we choose to own our authentic external beauty, ourselves, in a way that doesn't constantly pander to some kind of external validation. And you know what I'm about to say. The way that I found my way into this eventual state of self-acceptance, which is a journey that I'm on every damn day, is through esoeroticism. I'm telling you, I had never, until I started with the sensual dance and movement, felt like my body was something to be celebrated, and that felt good, and that I wasn't moving it or examining it in a way to punish it or to cast judgment. It was really the first time that I was like, holy shit, like I'm hot. Like I feel lit up. And it was not even, it didn't involve looking at myself. It meant being and feeling in my body. And I want everyone to have that feeling. Once you know what it feels like to feel hot in your body, you can't then take that away by looking in a mirror and say, oh, well, I'm not hot anymore. Like, no, I felt it. I embodied it. Like, that's my reality. And truly, what got me to the next level was incorporating the witchcraft. Crazy. The witchcraft aspect really has you, when done in the ways we do, like in the multiverse and at Makes Muse, is very heavy on know thyself and self-examination, and understanding your authentic truth, so that you don't try to search for yourself by being like someone else. And that was huge. Accepting who I am through these different forms of shadow work, even divinatory practices, astrological practices, our community. What I love, I'm going to just love on our community real quick. Especially our multiverse community, man, I am so impressed by the realness of the babes in there and the witches in there, and people really being vulnerable to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, but like everyone is in there wants to be them and wants to discover their internal magic, which is when you again discover, oh my God, just like it's my energy. It's my understanding my shadow. It's understanding like my authentic propensities. It is my ability to create beyond what I'm told is possible. There's some self-empowerment. There's some self-confidence and acceptance. So it's always for me going to go back to the melding between the sensuality and reclaiming your sexuality outside of intercourse, esoeroticism, and magic and witchcraft, and the sovereignty to know thyself that comes from the witchy pursuits. And that's why I'm always like, man, it really is esoteric witchcraft that is the thing that I want to spread into the world, that I want people to experience. I have been rambling. This is it feels a little self-indulgent and a little embarrassing, but I am going to post this just because I feel like I talked about myself a little more than I would have liked to. And shared some stories that, because of trigger warnings and stuff, I didn't go too deep into things. But I think I shared enough where you could understand, like, yeah, man, this is a person that did not like herself for most of her life, and did the things that any person in her position would have done. And hopefully you're thinking, wow, and the fact that like this shit is just being shoved down our throats. No wonder this is a problem. No wonder people are developing like literal depression and anxiety issues over this. And I care for the greater good, and I care for our witches, and I care for the world. And it's so, I'll wrap it up by saying this, like, I always return to myself when I find, because I said I'm on my mechanical horse, right? Not a high horse. And when I'll be like, oh, I'm getting chubby, um I'll remind myself, like what I said before, like, this is so boring. Like, I'm not going to be 44 years old and spending all of my mental, my monetary, my time, my energy, space on trying to make myself look like something that I see online that I perceive to be hot, when I can actually just decide that I'm hot like this and show up the fuck up as that. I want to make sure that I'm not like, I'm being super clear. Like, I work out, I try to eat healthy. Like, I care for my meat suit. I want it to function. Like, I wear makeup. I do the things that like I want to beautify myself. I want to feel healthy. But the point is, can we care for ourselves? Can we honor ourselves in health and beauty in a way that is really empowering, and that does actually make us feel good, and that isn't making us feel shittier for something that we're not? I don't know. And for me, I've just got bored with myself after I've done this work. And when I find myself return, I just don't care as much. And I'm like, oh, come on, reptilian brain, going back to the you got chubby, your profile is hideous or whatever. You're looks like you've been smiling too much with all those wrinkles, whatever. Like someone said, it is an honor to still be alive and to be able to age and to be old. Why can't we see it like that? Why can't we age forward? And so I refuse to allow myself to, I'm a free human. I have a beautiful life. There's so much I can go out and experience and create and do and relate to people. And I refuse to put any of that energy towards loathing myself because of what I look like anymore. And so, um, yeah, I'm going to cut it off here. So thank you so much for listening. I would love to hear your thoughts. This is a nuanced topic. So please, I hope you know I wasn't trying to offend anyone. I was just trying to share my story and my experience and my vision for how I want to move forward. And if you are interested, I am starting a one-on-one esoeroticism, the reclamation. It's a private program and mentorship because I've had people say like, I need to go at this deep, and they don't necessarily want to do it in a group environment, or they want a very specific program catered to them and what they're coming in with. So go ahead to our website, minxandmuse.com, and look under Dive Deep or Dive Deeper or something like that, and you'll see Esoeroticism, the Reclamation. It's this new program that it's going to be my long-term offering. It's going to be virtual, and I already have it planned, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Spread the word. But just hopefully just hearing this, if that's not of interest to you or available to you right now, that just hearing this gave you a little bit of inspiration and some motivation. And maybe next time you go to put a filter on, we think a little deeper of like, me not putting this filter on is like a big fuck you to capitalist systems that are just trying to make me spend money to feel bad about myself, and it's expectations of the infantilization of society, and that that I have no value of being a person who has aged. It can be really, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but just the idea of like, if someone can convince you to be infantile, to worship youth, that you will actually step into that energy of being more susceptible of being told what to do, and being manipulated. And I had some people share some stories around that, and I've read about that too. So it's like, ooh, this goes deep, y'all. This is it's fucking big. So before I blabber on anymore, thank you so much for watching. I love you. Stay in your magic, and I'll talk to you soon. Mwah. Bye. Thank you for joining me for the Minx and Muse podcast. You can find show notes and learn more about the studio at www.minxandmuse.com. As a reminder, it is our birthright to transform, expand, and safely exist as sensual, conscious, and empowered creatures.